There is a strange kind of Christian rising in this generation. Not fully surrendered, but not fully gone either. They still pray sometimes, still post Bible verses, still call themselves believers, but at the same time, they are drowning in pornography, hookups, secret addictions, emotional emptiness, and silent compromise. We are witnessing the rise of what many are beginning to call the parallel Christian, a person trying to follow Jesus publicly while privately living opposite to him. And honestly, this did not happen overnight. This generation did not suddenly wake up and decide to abandon God. What happened is more dangerous. They learned how to make Christianity coexist with compromise. They learned how to worship on Sunday and numb themselves on Friday night. They learned how to quote scripture online while secretly consuming things, slowly destroying their soul. And maybe the scariest part is this: many no longer even feel convicted because the digital world has normalized what heaven still calls destructive. This generation lives in a wilderness unlike any before it. Previous generations fought visible temptations, but modern youth carry temptation in their pocket 24 hours a day. Endless streams of lust, vanity, comparison, anger, attention addiction, dopamine, and sexual imagery flood their minds constantly. Recent research from Barna showed pornography consumption among Christians is approaching the levels of non-Christians, especially among younger generations. Think about that carefully. Not atheists, not unbelievers, Christians, people sitting in churches, worship leaders, young adults, even pastors. And this is not just about pornography. It is about normalization. The internet slowly trained people to stop blushing at sin. Adultery became self-expression. Hookup culture became freedom. Porn became normal. Lust became empowerment. And somewhere in the middle of all this noise, conviction quietly disappeared. But another reason many young Christians are drowning spiritually is exhaustion. This generation is mentally tired, economically pressured, emotionally overwhelmed, and digitally overstimulated. Many young adults no longer believe stability is coming. Some work endlessly, yet still struggle financially. Some are drowning in loneliness despite constant online connection. Some numb themselves through nightlife, alcohol, casual relationships, or endless scrolling. Honestly, many are no longer chasing pleasure. They are chasing escape. A sociologist once said, people often turn to addiction not because they love pleasure, but because they fear pain. That explains this generation deeply. Many young believers are not evil. They are exhausted. And instead of running toward God with their pain, they run toward distraction. Bars, pornography, social media, casual intimacy, attention, validation. Temporary anesthesia for deeper wounds. The parallel Christian has mastered one dangerous skill: appearing spiritually alive while slowly dying internally. They know worship songs, church language, and how to look okay publicly, but privately, they are collapsing. Because social media rewards appearance more than authenticity, many now build online spiritual identities while secretly battling hidden darkness. Jesus warned about this kind of divided life when he said no one can serve two masters, not because God is controlling, but because divided hearts eventually break people apart. You cannot endlessly consume darkness and expect spiritual peace. Eventually, the soul becomes numb, and when conviction disappears, destruction often feels normal. Many researchers now argue internet pornography has become one of the biggest forces shaping modern sexuality, especially among young men. For many young people, Their first teacher about intimacy was not scripture, mentors, or healthy relationships. It was the internet, an algorithm, a screen. And pornography teaches consumption without covenant, pleasure without responsibility, desire without love, and bodies without souls. Over time, this reshapes how people understand intimacy, marriage, and even themselves. Repeated exposure to hypersexualized content desensitizes the brain and normalizes behaviors once considered morally disturbing. That is how compromise grows quietly. One of the enemy's oldest lies is everybody does it. That lie has destroyed many people because modern culture constantly pressures young Christians to believe purity is outdated and compromise is maturity. But truth does not change because culture changes. In Noah's generation, everybody normalized corruption. In Sodom, everybody normalized immorality. In Rome, sexual excess became entertainment. Now, history repeats itself digitally. The modern believer is surrounded by voices whispering, "Relax, it's not that serious. God understands. You deserve pleasure. You're young." But Scripture says do not conform to the pattern of this world, because cultures drift, while truth does not. Ironically, this hypersexual generation may also be one of the loneliest. People are surrounded by connection, yet starving for intimacy. Because physical access is not emotional closeness. Many know how to sleep together, but not how to build trust. They know how to flirt, but not how to stay. Deep down, many are tired of meaningless attention, temporary pleasure, and emotional emptiness afterward. Studies on hookup culture repeatedly show many young adults report regret, loneliness, anxiety, and dissatisfaction after casual sexual experiences, because the soul was never designed for endless emotional fragmentation. God did not create intimacy merely for pleasure. He created it for covenant, trust, safety, love, and spiritual union. The most dangerous sins are not always loud sins. Sometimes they are the sins society celebrates, jokes about, monetizes, and normalizes. Many believers no longer ask, "Is this holy?" They ask, "Is this socially acceptable?" But heaven does not adjust itself to trending culture. One pastor once said, "A culture can normalize what is destroying it." And honestly, we are witnessing that now. Mental health crises are rising. Loneliness is growing. Relationships are weakening. And commitment is collapsing. Yet society still calls it freedom. But freedom without truth eventually becomes slavery. Peter began sinking when he focused on the storm instead of Jesus. What you constantly focus on eventually shapes your direction. This generation has been discipled more by algorithms than Scripture, more by influencers than wisdom, and more by entertainment than truth. Attention itself has become spiritual warfare because what controls your attention eventually influences your desires. But here is the beautiful part. Jesus still calls people out of darkness. Not perfect people, but broken people, addicted people, exhausted people, compromised people, confused people. The gospel was never for people pretending to have it together. It was for people willing to admit they need help. Maybe that is where healing begins, not with performance or hiding, but honesty. Freedom begins where secrecy dies. The modern world tells young Christians they can have Jesus while fully belonging to the culture. But eventually, every believer must choose who they truly follow, because you cannot keep feeding darkness and expect light to grow easily inside you. You cannot endlessly compromise privately, and expect spiritual strength publicly. The narrow road was never popular, but it still leads to life. And maybe the real rebellion in this generation is holiness, not fake religion or performative Christianity, but genuine surrender. A generation brave enough to stop living double lives. A generation willing to choose truth over temporary pleasure. A generation refusing to become parallel Christians. And maybe that generation begins with you. And if this message spoke to you today, take a moment to reflect on your life, your habits, and the direction your soul is heading. Subscribe to Word of Grace, comment your thoughts below, and tell us where you're watching from. Until next time, stay strong in faith, protect your heart, and keep walking with God.